Children of the night. What music they make.
Yo, what is up? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Blood Splatter Chatter. Some bonus blood here on week 5 of 5 weeks of Fang Fest. We've done 5 weeks of vampire talk, and I'm so stoked to be doing this one. A little something different. We're going to talk Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Specifically, we're going to talk season 5, episode 1, Buffy versus Dracula. But we're going to talk vampires in general. I want to talk about the show in general, and I have the honor of talking about. I'm super stoked for this because you've mentioned, you like kind of introduced me to Buffy. Just hearing you talk about it and hearing other people on horror podcasts and whatnot talk about it. I had seen of it a little bit back in the day when it came out. I watched the movie. I loved the movie before the series came out. But I know this is your favorite show, and you had just told me. But the first thing I was going to ask you is, you've done thousands of reviews at this point. You've reviewed thousands of things on YouTube, and this is your first time ever doing like a full show dedicated to Buffy, right?
Yeah, 100%, man. And which is just weird because it is like one of my favorite shows. I don't cover a lot of television.
Right.
We've tried to do that here and there, but my schedule doesn't allow a lot of television in. But back when I was a teenager in my early 20s, I had plenty of free time in my schedule to devour television shows. And Buffy is my favorite. Now, I've gotten some questions on like Rockin' Robbie Lives and stuff. Like, I recently had a question where somebody asked me to rank the seasons of Buffy,
okay,
right? So I've chatted about, but I've never done a dedicated show. I was super pumped when you asked me if I was interested in doing this, because I'm like, yeah, bro, this is my bread and butter. I got to break out my Buffy DVDs. Like, I mean, that's how old school I am, dude. I love Buffy. I love Angel. I have an interesting thing with Buffy. You know, you hear a lot of people talk about how they grew up with Harry Potter. Right? It's like maybe they were 7 when they first watched that movie, and each year there was another book or another movie, and they kind of grew up with Harry Potter, right? That's me with Buffy. Like when Buffy season 1 starts, she's in the end of her sophomore year of high school, and so was I. When she graduates at the end of season 3, that was 1999. That was when I graduated.
That's awesome.
Season 4, when she's going to college, like that was that. I mean, I grew up with Buffy. Like she's the same age as me. I know that seems weird, but like it was something that connected me to this character. And I would dare anybody to find a show where over all 7 seasons of Buffy, and then let's include the 5 seasons of Angel, to have characters grow, evolve, and change and metamorphosize so much as these characters. Like you see Willow in season 1 or Cordelia in season 1, and then look at where they wind up.
Or Spike.
They're so crazy. Spike, my favorite character in all of Buffy is Spike.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm super pumped, man. I'm very, very, very fucking excited to be here, man.
No, that's awesome, man. I'm so glad you could do it. Like I said, man, I'd first seen the movie. I loved the movie when it came out. And the big draw to me was Luke Perry. Like Luke Perry 90210.
Yeah,
but I look at
the name Pike's a fish.
And then Donald Sutherland's in it. It's got Rutger Hauer. But I haven't seen it in years.
Pee Wee Herman.
I haven't heard the greatest of things that hasn't aged that well. But what I was gonna say is like looking at like the era and like where Buffy came from, and like it's like my first thought was like, oh, this is like Scream for TV. It's that kind of dialogue written for teens, but then it goes further back. There's like Clueless before that is a huge influence. I don't know if was Clueless before Buffy the movie. I feel like it was.
Clueless was what, like 95? Buffy was what, 93 or something like that?
Yeah, you might be right. I think the movie for Buffy.
Clueless is 95.
Okay. All right. So it's afterwards. So yeah, Clueless Buffy, is kind of going off.
92 is when the movie came out for Buffy.
Interesting. But then before that, there's obviously the John Hughes teen era of the 80s, and then there's Heathers. And like that kind of is like and then you mix in X-Files with that. You throw some vampires in there and you get Buffy. this series, but I you made me think of that you kind of grew up with it. I watched it for the first time a couple years ago. It was my first time going through the show. Like I said, I'd seen a random episode here and there. And as much as I love the first 3 seasons, I really, really got into the show way deeper once she goes to college. You know what I mean? Coming at the show as an adult, I feel like that really gave me a different perspective on it. And when she gets to deal with more like adult problems and shit is when I got more into it. And like season 4 is probably my favorite. The one leading up to season 5 is my favorite.
Okay.
The season that this starts on before is fire too.
A lot of people say season 5 is their favorite. Like it's kind of universally accepted as like fandom's favorite season of Buffy. 4 is considered one of the worst seasons as far as the overall arc, because they had to change the whole thing with the initiative. Like Maggie Walsh was supposed to be the big bad, and they had to shift and change it into Adam. So you can tell that in the overall arc. But season 4 has got some of the best episodes, including what is considered the best episode of Buffy, which is Hush, right? The one with the gentleman, right? The silent episode.
Oh, I can't
see. Season 4, it's weird that, season 4 is great, and that's where the show starts evolving, because the first 3 seasons are basically the very simple premise that high school is hell. Literally, their high school is on a hell mouth, right? And I can see that now as an adult, like kind of being like not connected to that, right? For me, it's got the nostalgia qualities, but my personal favorite season of Buffy is 6. I also love 5, and I love 2 because I love the angel turn. I love the heel turn into Angelus. Like,
yeah, me too.
That's and the introduction of Spike and Drew. Like season 2's got some great episodes and a great arc overall. And 3 is a lot of people's favorites too.
That's what I was gonna say. 3, I hear people say that a lot. 3 and 5, I guess. But like as I said, I watched through the whole thing, and now I'm going through it slowly. I've been kind of rewatching it, and I was up to the beginning of season 4 when we decided to do this show, and I'm like, I'll just skip season 4 for now, and I'll just go watch the first episode of season 5, and it really puts into perspective how much changes in season 4. Like Spike's role changes a ton. You get Riley. You get Anya. Anya's role kind of changes. Willow all of a sudden is a witch and a lesbian. You add Tara to the cast. Buffy leaves fucking high school and goes to college. Like from 3 to 5, the show is completely different.
Yeah, 100%. I love the introduction of some of those characters. Like you said, the evolution of Spike, Anya's. Anya is amazing in the show.
Love her.
Like
I love her.
Emma Caulfield is amazing, and like I love her like fear of bunnies, like the Halloween episode where she dresses as a bunny.
I just watched that one. Because I started going through season 4 even further. The Halloween episodes in general are some of my favorites. I think that was the first episode that I like really loved as I was like getting into the show. I think it's season 1 when they have the first Halloween episode where they all become their costumes.
Yeah, I think that's season 1.
I loved it so much. That like really, it felt.
Dude,
Star Trek
like,
is the other
became
thing.
a ghost, and like a ghost of what? And Giles's growth as well. Like, look at the difference between Giles in season 1 and now where he's at, right? Like, such amazing stuff, dude. Season 5 is great. What's interesting is, okay, so we didn't have. So at the time, this show was on WB, which is now known as the CW, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we had WB, and then they took it away. So I used to watch this show like on Tuesday nights. While I was like doing homework or something like that. And I started getting into it. I got so into this show, dude. I would start drinking tea, like hot tea with like a little bit of cream and sugar, like because of Giles for some reason. Like, I don't know, man. I would watch the show drinking tea. And then the show got like, we lost WB. We lost the WB network. Right. And so in season 4 and 5, and then after 5, it jumped to UPN, and then we had UPN. But season 4 and 5, they would air on Fox locally in my city, but they would air it like at 4 a.m. after it aired. Like, so it would air Tuesday night, and then 4 a.m. on Wednesday, they would play it on Fox.
And that's it.
Right?
That's the only time you would get it.
That was yeah. So I had my VCR set to record, and then they started re-airing it on FX, and I recorded every single episode. So I had everything like recorded on long extended play VHS tapes, like 6 hours per tape. And then Then they came out with the DVDs, and I was such the nut that when they did the slim case DVDs, I worked at Movie Stop, which is like GameStop, but for movies. I think it went out of business. And I then upgraded to these slim case ones where they're all individual, because they used to be those, those box sets where they would fold out,
Right.
What the fuck, man? I'm just trying to get disc 5 right now.
I was jealous when you put up the picture and I'm like, oh, this fucker's watching this on DVD or Blu-ray.
Yeah, I should. I guess it's on Blu-ray now, so I gotta check it out. But yeah, my ass used to fucking record that shit at 4 a.m. for my local Fox station, and I could not wait to watch it. I'd wake up early on Wednesdays and like watch it before I went into work, man.
That's awesome.
I love this damn show.
I wish that I had been into it when I was a kid. Going through it now, because I loved X-Files, which is the funny thing. I remember my brother's your age. He graduated in 99 too. And I remember him watching this show. And it was kind of one that I would just catch it when he was watching it as well. But we'll come back to Buffy. But I did, since we're in the midst of FangFest and I've got you here, I did want to talk just a little vampires in general. You did Martin with us, which I know. And then tomorrow night, you're doing Horror of Dracula over on DHS, because Dylan over on Dylan's Horror Show is also doing a vampire month where he's doing all Dracula adaptations.
Yeah, and it's tonight. It's tonight that we're doing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Duh. It is Sunday.
Yeah,
but,
it's Sunday burnout.
what's just your thoughts on like the vampire? Here's what I want to ask you, like, and I want to know some of your favorite vampire movies too, but like comparing them and looking at them compared to like the other monsters, zombies and werewolves, Creature of the Black Lagoon, ghosts even. Like, where does vampires kind of stack up against the rest of those monster subgenres for you?
For me, vampires are at the tip top. Vampires are my favorite monster in fiction, whether it's film, whether it's novels, whether it's comics, anything like that, right? One of my favorite comic book characters is Blade, right? And Blade's one of my favorite movies as well. Like, I love vampire shit so much. That's probably because, and I've told this story a lot, my mom's who got me into horror films back in the 80s, early 90s, going to the video store, stuff like that, right? So my mom liked shit like Dirty Dancing. I didn't like that, right? My dad liked shit like Roadhouse at the time. I didn't like that, right? I was tired of these Patrick Swayze movies, but my mother loved horror. And she would let me like rent whatever Freddy movie I wanted, whatever Jason movie I wanted, whatever Michael movie I wanted. She would let me rent some really heinous shit. Especially, I grew up kind of a scared kid, man. Like, I remember being obsessed with Gremlins, but Gremlins terrified me. I had nightmares. I remember I loved Michael Jackson as a kid in the 80s. Who didn't? And Thriller scared the shit out of me. I remember one time my mom yelling at my babysitter because she came home and I'm like fucking scared, crying. What happened? Robbie wanted to watch the Thriller video when it was airing or whatever. And she's like, I told you not to let Robbie watch Thriller, right? There's the famous story about me going to go see Child's Play in the theater.
That's what I was just thinking of. I love that story.
But she loved vampire movies. And I remember in the 80s, man, like there were a lot of vampire movies. And so I remember very vividly Fright Night, Lost Boys, My Best Friend's a Vampire, Once Bitten. Like, these were movies that I loved. And then when I started getting into the Universal monsters, Dracula was like something I just was enamored with. I love Bela Lugosi in Dracula. I love the way that movie shot. It's a weird movie. There's no other movie like that 1931 Dracula, because they just started making talkies, right? They just started making motion pictures with sound. And Todd Browning was a huge director in the silent era, right? Like, he directed one of the movies that I hope gets rediscovered before I die, which is London After Midnight, right? Todd Browning it's a Lon Chaney Sr. film, but it's one of those lost films, right? But it's like a very iconic character, a very cool image. They remade that movie called Return of the Vampire.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. It's not out there. It's unavailable, but there's stills from it, right?
Yeah, they put together, like with stills, they kind of put together like a version of it. But like, that's one movie I would love to have like be discovered. And it's possible, like they found, the lost footage of Metropolis in my lifetime. So maybe they'll find London After Midnight in some vault somewhere or something like that. But allegedly the last one burned up. But yeah, it was those movies. Vampires are my favorite because vampires are very fucking sexy, dude. And I don't just mean like being hot. I mean like it's sexy. It's a sexy idea to me to be a vampire. Like, you don't have to like turn into like a hairy werewolf. You don't You're not some kind of grotesque monster, some kind of fish creature or mummy, decrepit and old and decaying and stuff like that. You're young, you're powerful, you have this like hypnotic quality to you.
Mhm.
So I've always been into vampires, dude. Like even like, not to give you too much information, but in the bedroom, there's a lot of vampire play, if you know what I'm saying. So like, I'm all about that shit, man.
I'm just picturing you with a fucking cape and an Eastern European accent. It's fucking...
I usually like to be the victim, but
I don't know.
I play the part of Giles in this episode.
Yeah, we all want to play the part of Giles in this episode. I don't know what you said that just made me think of this, but this is a thought that I had going through FangFest and watching some of the things that we've watched. I want there to be a movie, and maybe you can school me that there is a movie that it really relies heavily on paranoia themes. Where like there's a scene in Fright Night after Evil Ed shows up at Vincent Price's or Peter Vincent's place. He shows up, does what he does, then he leaves, then Brewster comes and he doesn't trust him. He's like, "Are you a vampire or are you not?" And that whole like invasion of the body snatchers thing, the fact that they're a monster that you can't tell just by looking at them necessarily, especially if you write the right movie. Is there a movie that you can think of that does the thing, that does Invasion of the Body Snatchers, that's like the main thing about the movie is like paranoia?
Oh, I'm sure there is. Now I'm like on the spot and I can't think of any of them, but I'm sure there's got to be, right?
I asked AI couldn't come up with it, but they're not the most reliable all the time. But I was racking my brain looking for one, but there needs to be one if there's not, right?
Yeah, for sure. And vampire fiction leads into that. Like even something like, the Lost Boys, like that's, these kids are trying to convince this other kid that vampires exist, right? And then he's like, "Is my brother a vampire?" And
right.
And like, so like, it's so weird. There's a lot of vampire fiction in the 80s, right? That helped shape a lot. And a lot of it was like there was that string of like vampire comedies, right? Like we were talking about this on the Martin stream, that like Martin kind of set up the self-aware vampire film that would dominate the 80s, right? Like in Dracula, Van Helsing's the only person who knows that vampires exist or believes it, right? In the Lost Boys, you go that way, but like everybody knows the vampire lore. Same thing about Fright Night. That's why Near Dark stands out to me, because it kind of like flips that just a little bit and grounds vampires in reality. And I love Near Dark. It's one of my favorite vampire films. Even though I still to this day detest the ending of that movie. It's so stupid.
Yeah,
like, a fucking blood transfusion from a horse vet and you're cured. Like that's the dumbest shit. But I love the movie tonally and all that stuff. And then in the 90s, I remember when I got my library card and I would go and I would rent the VHSs of all the Universal stuff. And then that was when I was like, you know what, screw it. I've never read Dracula. Let me read it. And so in 1997, I read Dracula for the first time, which happened to be the 100-year anniversary of the novel being published.
Oh, cool.
Right. And then up until like, I don't know, like probably 8 years ago, I read Dracula every year in September. Like I would start it in September and it was kind of like what would get me into like the Halloween mode or something. I've read that book so many damn times. I quote it as my favorite book. I love Dracula so much. I got so many different copies of it in my house, man. I really do. I read
or listened to the audiobook a couple years ago. I'm trying to think. The cast was crazy. It was like all like huge name people. I'm blanking on the guy. Who's the Tim Curry? Tim Curry plays a big role in it. I think he might be Van Helsing. But no, that's awesome. We were just talking about how goddamn horrific the book is. Because you think it's 1897 and there's some scenes in there that outside of all the vampire lore and everything it does to add to what we, the modern vampire, it's dark. Like it's like really fucking like horrific and gnarly at times too.
Yeah, really, really is.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm not going to ask you to do a top 5 or anything like that. Or feel free if you feel like it. But if you had to pick one vampire movie, what's your favorite of all the vampire movies? I'm going to ask you the same thing for Dracula adaptation. So I'll just ask now, is it one and the same? Is your favorite vampire movie one of the many Dracula adaptations?
Yeah, it's Dracula, 1931.
Okay.
It's Dracula 1931, dude. I love that movie. Dwight Frye as Renfield in that film. Edward Van Sloan as Van Helsing. Hell, even David Manners' goofy ass as Jonathan Harker. Like, I love everything about that movie. Helen Chandler, I believe, is the one who played Mina.
She's the best.
She's great, dude. I love the 1931 Dracula. Outside of that, though, Lost Boys, Near Dark, Blade. I like Bram Stoker's Dracula too. I don't like the push into the love story as much. I do like the Christopher Lee one, but I don't like it as much as the Bela Lugosi one, right? Like, but I'm so attached to that movie. So definitely Dracula, Lost Boys, Near Dark.
Where's
Blade.
Interview with the Vampire fit in with that?
Interview with the Vampire is really good. It's definitely top 10. I feel like there's something in the top 5 that I'm forgetting about right now. Yeah, I feel like I'm blanking on something that should be very obvious.
You know, one of
my favorites. Let the Right One In is a great one.
Ganja and Hess is one I haven't seen that just got put in like whatever it is where like they preserve movies forever. You know what I'm talking about? So I assume it's like they're treating it as if it's a very important movie. Have you seen that from like 73-ish?
No, I have not. No.
Okay. Blackula is one that I haven't
seen. Blackula. And Martin. Duh.
Yeah.
Duh. That's the one that should have been so obvious in my head. Like Martin is a really good one, but yeah, I feel like I'm blanking on something else. I don't know. Yeah. But Dracula 31 is my favorite. Then like
From Dusk Till Dawn. I don't know if you mentioned that one, but that's a banger.
Right. That movie is the one thing about that movie.
Fair enough.
Is it's like one movie and then it's another movie.
Right.
It's such a tonal shift halfway through that movie.
And I agree that the first half of the movie and like the part where we get the twist is the best part of the movie. And then the tail end of the movie, I kind of just always forget what the hell happens.
It just gets super goofy.
Yeah,
right?
It's just a big action movie, and it's all just blurs together.
And it's really dark and kind of sadistic at first, right? Like it's very like measured at first, and it's really like kind of dark and setting it up in a deliberate pace, and then it just goes fucking balls to the wall, dude. It really does. But that's cool, man. I like Fright Night. That's the one. Duh. Fright Night. Fright Night's one of my favorites. Y'all just covered that, right? I hope everybody said nice things about it.
Oh, we all do. Yeah, no,
okay, because I'll choke the motherfucker to talk shit about Fright Night. I love both Fright Nights too.
You gave it a 3.5. I gave it a 4.5, and Link gave it a 4. So I said Stu was the only one that was wrong. Everybody else was pretty spot on. But no, everybody enjoyed it. It was the first watch for both of them, and it's also one of the most successful videos that we've ever put up. We're like just a little bit away from 1,000 views, so go bump it up.
That's awesome, man.
Go bump it up. But before we move on, let's get back to Buffy. We've touched on the cast a little bit. You've already said that Spike is your favorite. I had some cast specific questions, but I guess elaborate. Why is Spike your favorite? And I was going to ask you specifically, Angel or Spike. I'm a Spike guy. Let me just preface this by saying I love the story of Angel. Some of the things that they do with, the writing, the way it's written, I love all that, but I don't buy that Angel loves Buffy. You know what I mean? I don't know if you can feel that or not, but like I never really bought. I like him as an actor and the performer, but their relationship, it seems one-sided to me. Buffy's pining for him, and I feel that she's in love with him, but for whatever reason, I never buy it the other way around.
Yeah, I'm Spike over Angel as well. This is a weird way to. Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll lay it out. So Spike is super funny. When he first gets introduced, he's set up to be this like big bad villain, and he's just meant to be kind of a red herring, right? To distract you from the Angelus turn that's about to happen. And Spike was initially supposed to die in the middle of season 2. Like Spike was going to die and Angel would rise and become Angelus again. But James Marsters was just so good in that role, right? That Joss Whedon was like, we gotta keep him. They brought him back in like one episode, I think, in season 3. And it's the episode where like, he's like talking to Willow about like love, and he's like Drew broke up with him again or whatever. And then he comes in as a season regular in 4. He gets the chip in his head, and then that gets resolved. And then him and Buffy develop a relationship, right? Which is, I love the arc of Buffy, man, because we've all made that bad decision where we were with somebody that we didn't care about. We were just trying to make ourselves feel better in the moment, right? And we were basically using someone. And that's what happens with Spike. Spike has a lot of depth to that character. Oh, yeah. The more you learn about William the Bloody, where he's come from, who he is, and then spoilers, but Angelus was cursed with a soul. Spike went out and fucking fought for his soul, right? Yeah. I love that. And I love the final season of Angel where Spike joins the crew on Angel.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Spike shows up in the final season of Angel, and Angel and Spike don't really like each other. But I will say this. If I met either of these in a bar, Angel would probably be the one I want to take home.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm
Like,
with you. Yeah. Well, but especially sometimes Spike, it's like, dude, eat a sandwich. Your face looks, he's like so sunken in. You need a snack, buddy. That's what I remember. Like when I started the series, I had seen pictures where like Spike is in the main cast, and it's like I'd heard people say Angel or Spike. I'm like, what? I could like you could not convince me that I'm eventually gonna like Spike. You know what I mean? Like in the first couple seasons. But it's like it reminds me, and I know this came afterwards, but Sawyer. Sawyer was kind of the first show, that first character that I fucking hated. But then by
you're
the
talking
end of
about Lost,
it,
right?
yeah.
That's my second favorite television
Hell
show.
yeah. That's probably my favorite television show of all time.
I love Lost. That's another great show where characters are more than they appear to be, and they really like it's character driven, right?
Right.
And and Angel, I do love Angel. I think David Boreanaz is awesome in that role, and he has influenced my hairstyling decisions for the last 25 fucking years.
I'll
man.
never get that out of my head now that you've said that. I'll never look at you without thinking you have Angel on your head. That's hilarious. What up, Rogue, my brother? Appreciate you being here. Big Herm, you big sexy bastard, says love Spike, but Team Angel all the way. You guys in the chat, Spike or Angel, and then who's your favorite if you had to pick one? Robbie, if you had to go just one more outside, or touch on it as many as you fucking want, but outside of Spike, like maybe one in the Scooby Gang, who's your favorite? Is it everyone's favorite? Is it Willow?
No, it's Giles.
Okay, hell yeah.
I am a nut for Giles, man. I think Anthony Stewart Head is an amazing performer. I love him in Repo Man. You can find footage of him playing Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror if you really want to dive into it. And some of my favorite bits in season 4 involve Giles, especially like when they find him and he's like doing acoustic. He's doing an acoustic set at the coffee shop.
I love that. I love that.
If I leave here tomorrow, like it's so freaking good, dude. I love the episode Band Candy where him and Buffy's mom, Joyce, they become like teenage versions of themselves again, right? After eating the band candy. Like I love Giles so much. I love his arc. I'm a huge fan of Cordelia. I think Cordelia is to me the sexiest person in this entire cast.
With you.
Yeah, and she just keeps getting hotter and hotter, right? I also really like Harmony. Harmony cracks me up. I was a big Oz fan back in the day too.
Well, let me. This was one thing that was weird for me. Coming, you know, I know Seth Green from all these other things at this point, and then I have a hard time. And I love him. I love his character in this. I love what they do with him, the Wolfman, and all that. I really struggle to buy him as a cool dude. Like at first, I'm like, is he gonna become a nerd at one point? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah,
but that's odd. And then the other one that I wanted to bring up and get your opinion on is Faith. I like her story. Again, I like what she does. I think it's the worst fucking acting in the whole series. I can't believe how like corny Faith is to me throughout everything that she does.
Honestly, I think the worst acting in the entire series is one of my other favorite characters, which is Tara. Like Tara, I really like her, but like I think Amber Benson's not that great at performing. But I mean, I get what you're saying there. I love Faith. Who doesn't love Faith? Faith is great. I love Anya. I'm just looking at this list. I love all these characters. Like even Dawn, when Dawn gets introduced, you're like, what the fuck are they doing with this? Dawn becomes one of my favorite characters, her relation. And then let's not discount Buffy and how amazing Sarah Michelle Gellar is in the show. Incredible. My least favorite character in the whole, well, first of all, my favorite aspect of Buffy and Angel out of everything is the whole past of Spike, Drew, Angelus, and Darla. Like, I love, like, I wanted a whole, that's why I love Angel so much, especially season 2. They dive more into that. Well, like, I want a whole movie just about those 4.
That's what makes me think of Lost. I was going to say, like, oh, Lost did one thing that they did is go back and explore the characters' past that way. But they did do that quite a bit in Buffy. Those are some of my favorite episodes when they go back to Angel's past or Spike's past. Now,
my least favorite character in the entire show, and most of Buffydom agrees with me, we all really hate Riley. Riley is a piece of shit, did not deserve to be with Buffy, and fuck that guy and his doofy ass haircut in season 2, or in season 4, he's got a doofy ass haircut.
I've been matching my hair off fucking Riley all these years, man. Now I feel like an idiot. Big Herb saying Angel loves Buffy so much he lost his soul after they made love. and she's the only one that can do that. He can bang whoever he wants, and nothing will happen. Good for him.
That is true. It is like the true love aspect, but I do feel like that's a bit rushed. Like a 200-something-year-old vampire falls in love with a 16-year-old girl. Like they try to explain it, but
Right.
like it does feel a little bit rushed, and I don't know. I fucking love it. Like,
well, it's got to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth it for where it goes at the end of when he makes his sacrifice or whatever it is. The other thing before we move on, I wanted to mention just a couple of my favorite two storylines in the whole thing. One would be, spoiler alert, by the way, this is a big fucking spoiler. They're both big spoilers. When Buffy's mom passes, that shit, that is like one of the best moments in TV history. Like, mom, like I get goosebumps right now just thinking about it. When
dude,
she walks in and sees that, and then Tara's death. Spoiler alert.
Oh, dude, it's so shocking when the nerd herd, right, do that, the trio.
I love them. I love them.
And then like when they reveal Joyce's death, it's at the end of the episode and it just goes quiet.
Yes.
And then the next episode is the body. And that is a crazy, awesome episode, man. Like if you look at it, like each scene opens up with a different shot of her mom's body. And like those of us who have lost our mothers, man, that shit hits me. It hits me hard, dude.
Same, bro. You don't know. I mean, yeah, I lost my mom when I was a kid too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And they handle that shit so well, man. I know that Joss Whedon's not like the most popular guy anymore, but man, he really was nailing it with Buffy, and he had a great team of writers. Marty Noxon, Doug Petrie, Jane Espenson, David Fury, lots of really fantastic writers that were on this. And honestly, a lot of them did work on the Dark Horse comic book series.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that. Is that good shit?
Some of it is, some of it's bad, but some of it's good.
Right.
And if it's written by somebody that's attached to the show, they're usually really good.
Nice.
So yeah, I would recommend Ring of Fire. That's one I would really recommend. Buffy, Ring of Fire. And also there's like a Tales of the Slayers, right? That kind of goes into the past of some of the different Slayers, and that one's really, really good too. Those are the two I would probably recommend the most.
That's cool. That's cool. That seems like stuff that would fit good for a comic book. I always have an issue like Flash. Like watching the Flash TV show. It's the same with the comics too, but watching the Flash TV show, by like the third season, there's like 50 speedsters. And you're like, what the hell? It kind of takes away from like the Flash. He's not the only fast one. And I kind of have that issue towards the end of Buffy when you've got all these Slayers and everyone's powerful. Even Faith. When Faith came in, I'm like, oh, what do you mean? I thought there was only one Slayer. There's something about that always bugs me.
Yeah. Well, Buffy dies at the end of season 1. And then the Kendra comes in. Kendra dies. And then Faith is called, right? And then, yeah, in the last season, when she unlocks all the potential Slayers and all that kind of stuff, like, I think season 7 is good. It might be my least favorite season of Buffy, though. I mean, I do like it, and it's got some good episodes, but
it's the one that took me the longest to get through.
Yeah. There's just some odd, like, I don't know, man. Like when Xander stands up Anya at the altar, and then all the aftermath of that, like,
which is good.
It's hard to top season 6 for me. Season 6 was the fucking shit, in my opinion, man. I love my favorite episode. Period is Once More with Feeling, the musical episode, man. Like that episode will make me fucking tear up, dude. Every time, dude.
Hell yeah.
Every time, man.
All right. Well, one more thing before we get into Buffy vs. Dracula. I don't know how well you can see this, but we don't got to go too deep into this. But like you already mentioned quite a few of these. These are all the big bads. I think it is. I didn't make this. I just found this image on the internet. But you mentioned the 3 like nerds. Like there's something so comic booky about that. Like it feels like they would be perfect comic book villains. I love them. I love Dark Willow, and I love the mayor from season 3. I love them all, honestly, but those are just some of them that stick out. But if you had to pick one, who's your favorite big bad, or who's some of your favorites? My
favorite big bad is Angelus. Like, that's one of my favorite things about season 2 is that turn and man, and like what it's representative of, right? It's representative of a young woman who has sex for the first time, and then the dude just completely turns, and like it's playing with that. I've already mentioned I just love everything involving Angelus and Drew and Spike and Darla. I love that shit, right? Glory is a really good villain. Like Glory's really cool.
Which one's that? Because I'm some of the, like I said, I watched this.
Glory's
I
the
binged
god
this
in
whole thing.
season 5. The chick in the red dress.
Oh yes, she's badass.
Yeah, I love Dark Willow. I love season 6. My least favorite out of all of these might be Adam, or is it Caleb? Is Caleb Nathan Fillion's priest's name or
I
whatever?
don't know, but as soon as you said my least favorite, I started scanning it. My eye went directly to him.
Yeah,
He's
he's
probably
all
my least
right.
favorite.
Yeah, but and I also you got Sweet on here too. He's the demon that starts the whole musical episode. He's pretty great. He just recently passed,
Hmm.
that actor. But I love Sweet as well. But my favorite would definitely be Angelus.
Hell
100%.
yeah. I think the guy from the first season was kind of a perfect first season Buffy villain. He's very
Oh yeah, the
vampire.
Master.
That's one thing that's great about the show. It's called Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but that was one of the nice like surprises for me when I started watching it is it's Buffy the Demon Slayer, it's the Ghost Slayer, like it
Yeah,
plays with every horror trope, every
I love.
subgenre.
He's got Kool-Aid mouth permanently. Right.
I heard someone else say it. I think this would actually be a good idea. Like if I do like I like to do like Fang Fest and things like that, where you take a subgenre, spend a month on it. I could do a Buffy episode for every time we do this. Like when I do Ghost, we could pick out a Buffy Ghost episode and do it.
Yeah.
They've got zombie episodes, there's werewolf episodes.
And they're all fully realized. It's not some bullshit like supernatural where they're just like human looking motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? Like the werewolves are actually werewolves. The demons are actually demons. The makeup effects throughout Buffy are really solid. I mean, they're up there with like Star Trek level.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Definitely.
So yeah, I mean, but Angelus is the one for me. Dark Willow probably second, and Glory. Glory is great too. I mean, that's the big bads are always pretty well done in the Buffy universe. So for certain.
Hell yes, my friend. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, we don't need that just yet. But if you want to know what we're doing next Thursday, that's what we're doing. Let the right one in, and a girl walks home alone at night to finish off Fang Fest. But let's go ahead now, 36 minutes into this bitch, and get into the episode we're going to speak about more specifically. As we said, season 5, episode 1, Buffy versus Dracula. Now, the reason why I initially had the idea to talk about this specific episode with you is because Bloody Disgusting had written an article talking about the similar thematics between this and the new Nosferatu movie. This female empowered and kind of almost like the grooming aspect, and then overcoming that by the end of it. You know what I mean? It's kind of there's a similarity there. But then as soon as I set this up and you're like, oh yeah, let's do it. It's one of my favorites. I start thinking, I hope I fucking like it. I'm like, first of all, I hope it's standalone enough to do this episode on, and I hope I enjoy it. And holy shit, man, it might be my favorite episode. Now that I knew the story of Dracula before I'd seen the episode and I'd read the book and everything, but I've been in Dracula mode. I've watched so many adaptations over the past couple months that I had a smile on my face both times I watched it this week. Everything with Xander as Renfield is so perfect. I fucking love it.
He fucking gets the spider.
Oh, good. The Dark Master Bader is one of my favorite. We didn't mention Xander when we did the cast. He was probably my initial thing that kind of drew me to the show. Like once I started watching it, he was my favorite part in the first few seasons. I like him less as the series goes on, but I love Xander to death. I think he's perfect in this. But I love how they treat it as a Dracula adaptation. But what are your thoughts on this episode in specific, brother?
I love this episode. So being a big Buffy head and being a big Dracula nut, when this debuted, right, in like 2000, I believe, right, I was so freaking just astonished. I loved it. I loved how it homages so much from the Dracula story. Like you said, the Xander Renfield stuff, Giles and the brides. I love Spike being like, it's just showy gypsy stuff. Whatever. I love how they explain how he fits in into the Buffy universe. I love
how Anya has a relationship with him too.
I don't know if he'd remember me, maybe, like once or twice. Xander's getting all like jealous and shit. So I love that. I love how they all like fanboy and fangirl at first.
Me too.
When he goes, I am Dracula. And she goes, get out.
Yeah.
She's just so excited. And like everybody's excited. He's like the celebrity, it's like it's fucking Dracula. And I love that they do, because vampires and Buffy, they're demons possessing somebody's body, right? And they don't turn to mist, they don't turn to bats and wolves and all that shit, right? They don't hypnotize people, but they let Dracula still be Dracula. And it does mirror the story, like coming in, from the sea, the clouds and all that kind of stuff.
That's what I appreciated more about it, because I was like able to just appreciate all of it and see what they were doing with him.
Yeah, I love Spike too, when he's all like, "Oh yeah, he's got his showy, his box of special dirt, and his castle. He's got to live in his castles. He's all this kind of shit." And then the other thing I love about the movie is Rudolph Martin as Dracula. Right before this, he had played Vlad the Impaler in I think it was a TNT made for TV movie called Dark Prince: The True Story of Dracula, and I loved that thing. I remember recording that on VHS. I remember buying it on DVD. It's available on YouTube. I rewatched it again this week. I love that movie. Peter Weller's in it. And so it was so cool to me that the guy who played Dracula in that movie, and he doesn't become Dracula until the very end of that movie. It's all just an origin story, right?
Oh,
and
so it could almost act like a prequel.
Yeah, it's like a prequel, right? Like, because it's the true story of Dracula. It's about him and his brother Radu, and like what he's trying to do with the Ottoman Empire and the Turks and all this kind of stuff, and the Roman Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church. Like, it's all kind of based in history, and it's such a cool movie. And then at the end, he accepts the gift and he resurrects, and he's Dracula now, right? And then flash forward, and now he's in Sunnydale. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's awesome.
2,000 years, or 500 years later or whatever. And I love him as Dracula. He has the voice. He's got the swag. He's got the sexiness. He's got all the qualities. I would have loved to have seen Rudolph Martin get to really do something with the character in a more like prominent movie or something like that. But I think his performance is great. And I love the bit at the end too, where like she can't defeat him because he's just like, and she's like, "I'm standing right here."
I love it so much. He never comes back, right? He doesn't like pop up in Sunnydale again. Yeah, it's so good. He is fantastic in it. That was one of the things I already said, like Xander, but the Giles bit, because like you said, they hit all the beats. You see Dracula's introduction into it in the coffin and the way he just kills the dudes at the beginning, and then you flash away before you can even see him. But just in every Dracula story, there's a bit where someone's going to Dracula's place to kill him, wherever he's at in the coffin. And I just love that it was Giles and Riley, which pretty much does like the Harker part and the Van Helsing part, like combined together. How do you think it functions, like the rest of it, just as the Dracula adaptation, the beats that it hits and the nods that it does?
Well, I think it does it expertly well, dude. Like, you're right. Like, they're like, Buffy's kind of Mina. You got Giles kind of like being like the Van Helsing. I love the different roles. Like, if they had more time, maybe like he could have visited Willow first. Willow could have been Lucy or something like that, right? But my favorite bit is
great. Or Cordelia.
Oh yeah, well, Cordelia's
not gone.
Yeah, she's gone. Yeah, she's in LA at this point. Season 2 of Angel. Season 2 is great. That's probably the best season of Angel.
I haven't got there yet, honestly. I only watched the first season.
And it's good, like just when you start liking Doyle, they kill him. Like, that's something that Joss really wanted to do. I love in Angel all the Batman kind of bits, but how he's like, Angel's like Batman, but not as cool as Batman. Like, he hops into the wrong car because everybody's got like cool convertible cars in LA, right? There's a bit somewhere where he's like sneaking into a room, but he slips in on a mop bucket or something. Like, I love stupid shit like that. But my favorite out of all of it though is the Xander being like the bug eater. Yeah, that's another thing that Spike says. Oh, he's so fancy with his box of dirt and his bug eaters and all that shit, right? I just love how that works, man. I think it works great because it plays up on the tropes and the expectations of Dracula while firmly implanting it and rooting it into the Buffy universe. And even the music cues get very cheesy or very driving at times. So even the music, like everything about it really works. Cause I feel like it's an episode that respects Dracula and his lore and mythology, but at the same time is having fun with it and gets to play with it in a Buffy kind of way.
Right. Even the title, Buffy versus Dracula, is kind of tongue in cheek and fun. I love the bit at the end where, I don't know why, it hit me hard. And it was really cool when Dracula tries to give Buffy a taste of the blood. And he says, I wrote it down. You never wanted to know what we fight for. And I'm like, I don't know. There was something so cool about that. And it kind of puts you, maybe for the first time in the show, like, I guess you get in Angel's head at times, but like in the perspective of a vampire, specifically the ones that she's killing, and like, what are they fighting for?
Yeah, I like that. And another bit I really like, you just reminded me, and I think this is so, I don't know why. Even when I was watching this last night, it like got me like fucking feeling weird ways. But like when he's like, when he notices the scar on her neck and he's like, you've been tasted.
Yeah. Who did that? I was going to, do you remember? Like, I know she got bit before. When was that?
It's the master, bitter, and Angel. But specifically they're talking about Angel.
Okay.
Because she like, there's that episode where Angel feeds on her to like, for him to like survive and all that shit. But the master does it at the end of season 1 too.
Okay.
But like, I love when he's like, you've been tasted. And he goes, he was unworthy.
Yeah.
He let you go. So sexy, bruh. Dracula's so sexy, dude. At that moment, I'm just like, you got me, whatever you want. Just like, please do it. Just bite me. Come on. I'm like Xander. I'm eating bugs. Like, please, Dark Knight. Please. But in particular, they're talking about Angel.
Okay. How do you think it functions? Because this is one thing that I also love about it. Like, they squeeze so much in this 45-minute episode. It really does also a good job of setting up season 5. You've got Buffy now; she's on the search for the darkness within her. How do you think it just functions like as an episode of Buffy, and then like just like the themes behind it, like the story that we get in this one? What's it mean for Buffy and the Scooby Gang?
Well, it's a really great opening for season 5. I remember we had all heard rumblings that season 5 was going to be the last season of Buffy.
Oh, okay.
And all of this had been built up to. There's even the dream sequence. I believe it's in season 4. Where Buffy has a dream where Faith says something like Little Miss Tuffet set, like whatever, Little Miss Tuffet, blah, 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 counting down the big 770 or something like that. That was the number of days until until her death.
Oh,
right? So this was all planned out, right? And so what I love about how this sets up season 5 for the characters, first of all, you got Giles' arc, right? He's struggling with the fact that he feels like he's not needed anymore.
Love that.
And this one episode, you know, at the end when she's like, I need you to be my watcher again. Like that's great. It sets up the jealousy of Spike and where he's going to go. You can already start seeing that he's like, oh, is this dude starting to get into Buffy a little bit, right? It sets up the conflict that's going to develop between Buffy and Riley, right? Because Riley never feels like he's good enough for Buffy because he's not, right? So it sets up a lot of stuff well, in particular, Buffy's journey, right? So they've already conjured the first Slayer, right? And she's learned that, but she doesn't quite realize yet how rooted in darkness her powers are. Dracula is the factor that motivates her to dive deeper into that because Dracula recognizes it, right? So there's that. The other thing that the show does really, really well, Buffy's kind of tired and bored with Riley. Like Riley has insecurities for a reason. The show opens with them in bed. She's restless. She goes out, gets one off, and then now she goes back into bed, right? But the thing is, season 5 is so good in Buffy's arc because at this point, she's really good at what she does. She doesn't need Giles anymore. Giles feels like he's left out. A lot of people feel like they're left out. She's out there patrolling. She's doing her shit. Season 5, and this perfectly sets this up. Season 5 is where she goes from Slayer to Savior.
Yeah.
Right? She's now like her powers, the Slayer powers are rooted in darkness. They're rooted in demonology, right? That's something we find out later on in the season. And it's a struggle that she has to deal with it. Like her powers are rooted in this kind of darkness. And the way that the season plays out, and that's why it was so genius when you really think about it, to introduce the sister, Dawn, who gets introduced at the very tail end. I remember being so fucking confused.
It's so good though. Yeah. While you were talking, I just wrote in my notes, Dawn. Don't forget fucking Dawn. I just love the idea of that. I was like, shit, do I need to rewatch season 4? What did I miss? Fucking sister. Like, that was so cool the way they set that up.
Yeah, and I love it. She's the key and all this stuff, but it gives Buffy something to protect. She goes from being trained to slay vampires to protect people to now what she's doing, she is just a killer. She is just like out there like slaughtering, and it's something satisfying to her.
Right.
You know? And the whole arc of this season is her understanding that being a slayer is cool, but being the savior is what she's actually here to do.
Right.
That sacrificial nature. And Dawn is integral to that. And so is Dracula because it sets her on that path, on that road. So I think that this is a really great setup for the whole season and what was intended to be the end of Buffy.
That's so cool. Yeah, I didn't know that it was intended to end at this one or after this season. That kind of it sets up the thing that by the end of the series is one of my issues with season 7 is that like the Buffy kind of from this point on has this more serious outlook at her like role and everything. And I think in season 7 like she's so serious. Like that kind of like bums me out. Like, you know what I mean? There's like all this weight on her. And
Yeah.
she's not as fun in season 7 isn't as fun because of it. And I think it all kind of starts here.
Yeah, and like one thing though about season 5 and this episode too is it does keep that sense of fun for a while, right? Season 6 gets dark. I think season 6 is the darkest season of Buffy, right?
Yeah, actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, I think season 7, at least in part of it at the beginning, it does kind of come back with the wackiness after season 6 is super fucking dark. But Buffy still stays super serious till the end.
Yeah, well, at that point, she's like veteran military leader, basically. She's like putting together an army to go up against the First, which is a cool idea because it's set up in like season 3, I believe, when Angel's being tortured by the First. And I like that that's set up for the First evil and all that kind of stuff. But it was kind of, I think it was a little bit like disappointing that the First wasn't something like a big physical entity for her. I don't know. There was something about 7 that I found a little bit lackluster, but it may also be that it was overstuffed a little bit.
Too many slayers, too many slayers that were sitting around fucking off and not doing anything. They're all just sitting in the house.
And not as bad as Riley, but I don't know. I never bought Kennedy and Willow. Like I'd never really completely bought that relationship that was developing there too. So.
Right. Hell yeah, man. All right, man. Oh, this has been fucking fantastic. Let's wrap it up with just anything else that you want to add, just Buffy in general, this episode in general. Rate the thing. I know exactly what you're gonna rate it because it's your favorite series and one of your favorite episodes. Spoiler alert, I'll be giving it the same rating, but rate it and any final thoughts, brother.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 5 unworthy fucking Dracula bites is what I'm gonna give it. 5 flies eaten by fucking Xander. I love this show. I would encourage anybody to check it out. It's a little cheesy at times. I don't like being this guy to have to say things like this, but like when you start Buffy, get through season 1 and you're going to get hooked into season 2. Like I just had a friend that I got into Buffy and I told her this. I was like, look, I hate being this person because people tell me this. They told me this about Supernatural and I just for 8 years was waiting for this show to get good. But like, Buffy, a lot of people think that it takes till season 3 to really hook you in. For me, it's season 2, but honestly, it happens in season 1. It's the episode How to Not Kill Your Boyfriend on Your First Date, where she's like hooking up with that dude and he's like fascinated by all the danger and all this kind of shit. Like that's where the show kind of comes together. It's got great character growth. The arcs are amazing. All the monsters are treated with respect and they all are threats, but at the same time keeps this like humorous tone and all these Whedonisms, right? Like you mentioned like the similarity to the dialogue to things like Heathers and Clueless, right? And it's 100% there. And it's so expertly well done in Buffy every season, even though I'm talking a little bit of shit about season 7 and the overall arc of maybe season 4, the initiative where they had to change some shit around. Buffy's great. I'll watch any episode at any time. And Buffy versus Dracula is a great fucking episode. I would highly encourage anybody to get into Buffy and, fuck yeah. 5 blood splatter chatters, man.
Hell
fucking
yeah, man.
Perfect score, man.
Going back on what you were saying about season 1, and I agree with you because it's, it's a little bit different. Any show, you need to kind of catch your bearings and get rolling and everything. But it's only 12 episodes, if I remember right. The rest of them are like 22 or 24. I think 22.
Yeah, season 1 was a mid-season replacement. So it started like in the spring instead of the fall.
Right. And at each season, you see a big jump. I think of like the production value and everything for a while, like towards the end. Season 4 is really when it becomes like a lot more cinematic. Like the action kicks in. Even at the beginning of this episode, as Dracula's kind of watching Buffy, she does like a Black Widow style fucking legs wrapped around the neck, flipped over, like you know what I mean? That's
the other thing. The fight choreography is always good in Buffy too, man.
Yeah.
They really nail it, dude.
Totally, man. I'm right there with you.
The digital effects. But it was a WB show, very
right?
Small budget.
Yeah, you could let a lot slide in the late 90s, early 2000s on the fucking WB. But I'll give it a 5 as well. Everything I said earlier. Xander's the highlight of the whole thing for me. Xander as Renfield is the shit. The Gilesness of it all, the way it works as a Buffy episode, the way it does so many things in this one episode, I think is fucking badass. Such a random question, just because I have it in my notes. Do you know the band Widespread Panic?
Yes, I do.
Okay, all right. So weird out. I'm watching all the time, like, oh my god, who loves Widespread Panic? Did you know? Like, did you know who they were back in the day when you were watching this? Like,
Yeah.
do you know why I'm bringing it up? Obviously,
Because they're like there's widespread shit in Buffy all the time.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've told you before, like I come from a very like hippie town. I feel like a lot of kids in my era in high school were like really into jam bands, and Widespread Panic is one of those big ones that if you ask most people on the streets, they don't know who the hell Widespread is. So it's so cool to see them constantly in the background on Buffy the Vampire.
Yeah, I was never the biggest widespread guy, but I was for a while a Fish guy. And
There you go.
Yeah, I was a little bit of a Fish guy. So
Yeah, I mean Widespread's not my
and Buffy
they
has
have a
great
couple.
music, dude. When I'm watching this episode, when they're on the beach, right when she's about to fucking nail Riley in the head with the football, which I fucking love. I just love that shit so much. But they're playing like a Vertical Horizon song, right? Because it's WB, so there's a lot of like popular music of the time. So nostalgic for me, right? One of my favorite musical moments is like, if you remember, they would bring musical acts into Buffy, right? Because it was WB, right? And they would actually like Biff Naked is in an episode, right? One of my favorite episodes. It's in season 2, I believe, but it's the episode where they're at the Bronze and Buffy starts sexy dancing with Xander and then just leaves him, like blue balls him, right? But Chibo Mato is playing in the fucking club, and they're one of my favorite bands, and that's how I discovered them. But they're playing, I think it's Sugar Water. Oh, what a sexy ass song. But or maybe that's the beginning of season 3. I think it's back like when she comes back from visiting her dad at the beginning of season 3. She just had to kill Angel, and she comes back and she's all cold and fucking dark and shit. So the music, the popular music usage in Buffy, even though it's obviously like planted because it's WB and they're making those deals, I think it works. It dates the show, but it has, especially if you watched it back then, it has that nostalgia factor to it.
We were just talking about this when we did Fright Night. I want things to be dated. I like to look and be like, look at what they were wearing. Listen to the music. Look at her fucking hair. Those shoulder pads. Like
you're not even kidding, man. Like watching Buffy, man, there was that period where all the women were wearing those backless fucking shirts. Oh my god.
That was one thing when I started watching it. I would look at what Xander was wearing and be like ashamed. I'd be like, oh god, we used to look just like this. Like exactly like it. But hell yeah, man, this was fucking fantastic. A 5 from me, a 5 from you. And I think we got a 5 from Big Herm down there. I'm pretty sure 5 backlogs from Big Herm. And very excited to be wrapping up FangFest next Thursday, this coming up Thursday, with 2 movies I've never seen. Let the Right One In from 2008. Foreign film. I'm having a hard time thinking of the country of origin. But
Sweden, right?
I'll go with that.
Norway, one of those things.
You've seen it, right?
Let the Right One In?
Yeah.
Yes, love Let the Right One In. Let Me In, the American remake, not as much, but Let the Right One In is a really good movie. There's a scene with, have you watched it yet?
No, I bought it. I haven't watched it yet.
Bro, the scene with the cat is fucking wild, dude.
Okay, all right. Super excited for that. And then A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night from 2014. You've seen this, by the way? I have not.
I've not seen that one, no.
This one, like when you look at reviews, like everyone's just like, every review seems to be written in like this, like, oh my god voice, like the most beautiful vampire movie you'll ever see. Like people just like adore this movie and like the vibe from all the reviews. So I can't wait to sink my teeth into it. Very excited to be finishing off FangFest with that. And then, like I said, I think I have this up here. Go back and check out what we've been doing. We did Nosferatu, fantastic Dracula vs. Dracula show. Robbie joined us for Martin. My homies Peter and Eric did Midnight Mass with me. Maybe one of the best shows we've ever done on this channel with Fright Night last week. And this, the best show we've ever done right here with Buffy the Vampire Slayer talk.
Oh, yeah.
And then, and then next Sunday, same bad time, same bad channel. We'll be doing, I think, 2 Shudder originals. There's this brand new one called Grafted. It's like a body horror thing, supposed to be really good. And then a wrestling horror comedy called The Match that's coming out next Friday. So that'll be next Sunday. And then Robbie rapid fucking fire. Robbie's about 40 things coming up this week. Tell him about it, Mr. Billa.
Tonight, the return of Rockin' Robbie live at 7 p.m. Central Time. All new, all different, all amazing. So be tuned into that. After that show, I'll be over at Dylan's Horror Show to talk about Horror of Dracula, the Hammer Studios production of Dracula, starring Christopher Lee of course, Peter Cushing. Then Friday, we got, Monday night, PCP movie night, Starman by John Carpenter, starring Jeff Bridges and Karen Allen. Very excited for that one. Friday, we got 4 shows back to back. We got a conversation with Ed Brisson at 3 p.m. Central. At 5 p.m. Central, we got a conversation with Joe Casey.
I thought that was Kane Hodder. This is Kane Hodder.
It kind of looks like it, right? Shortly after that, we have at 6 p.m. Central Time, the monthly comic book review. So, yep, there we go. The monthly comic book review with me, Nick, Greg, Eric, and Stu, talking about the best comics of January. After that, over the Blame Fable show for their comics curing cancer. We're doing a cancer benefit show. So join us for that. There's going to be some prizes and shit you can win by donating to cancer research and stuff. So that's super freaking awesome. Pretty busy week.
Looks like it. Yeah, fuck yeah. Looks like it. And then, as we said, wrapping up FangFest next Thursday, Let the Right One In, and A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. And then next Sunday, a Shudder original double feature, 2 brand new movies we'll be talking about. Go check me out on Instagram to make sure that we're doing match with this. I might change that one. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Grafted and The Match, but double check over on Instagram at blood.splatter.chatter. Good times. All right, Rockin' Robbie, I appreciate the shit out of you guys. Go sub up to Robbie if you have not. Sub up here, hit that like button, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next Thursday to wrap up FangFest.
Children of the night. What music they make.
Grr. Arg.